I'm going to tell y'all right now, all of these wonderful people would not be here without Patreon supporters like you. If you enjoy credible news, reviews, and commentary on UFOs and UAPs 5 days a week, you want to support this show. What's your name? Marty. Marty, look how easy this is, Marty. Pick up your phone. Boom! You're a Patreon member. I mean, look, it's so easy. You just click the link, which is right here. Just for $1 a month, you can support this show. Just fill out the information and pledge what's comfortable for you. It could be $1, $5, $10, or who knows. Just support.
Hello, everybody! Welcome to another episode of Known Quantities on UCR. I'm your host, Daniel Miller, your go-to for exploring our understanding and the edges of science, futurism, tech, and yes, UAPs. We have an excellent episode ahead for you. I'm very excited to talk with our guest today. But before we jump into that, take care of a few things, pay a few bills. First of all, thank you, Das Tapes, for the lovely music. Their Bandcamp link is in the description below. If you dig them, I highly recommend you check them out. Another reminder that this is a podcast, Spotify, iTunes / Apple Music, depending on how old you are. And you can rate, subscribe / follow. Give us a great review if you can. It certainly helps the algorithm, and our podcast has been growing. So if you are doing that, it really makes a difference. Thank you so much. Make sure to like and subscribe to this channel. It helps our algorithm out. Ring that bell. You will get notified ahead of time when episodes happen. Sometimes they do happen at different times, different days, depending on when our guests are coming. As you know, Friday's KGRA episode happens at a different time, and Singularity Lab does too sometimes. Thank you so much, guys. Moderators, chat moderators. I keep forgetting to shout out you guys, but you guys are amazing and work so hard behind the scenes. Akashi Chris, Tina Tomaszewski, Arlene, thank you so much. And we have links below, guys, to support the channel. We are a public access channel, which means we are supported by viewers like you, just like BBS. If you can't support, no worries. You get the same show. It is for everybody after all, but if you can, your support is very much appreciated. You can support at my Patreon, patreon.com/Daniel Miller, where everything goes right back into the show, and I can spend even more time on great episodes like this. We also have our super chats open. That's another great way to support our channel if you have any burning questions for Taras or myself. And I believe that's it. Discord links as well below, links for Taras below. We'll get more into it, guys, but without any further ado, let me bring on gentleman of the hour. So Taras Matla, let me bring up my notes here, is an associate director of the University of Maryland Art Gallery. Now, at the art gallery, he oversees its day-to-day operation and a permanent collection of over 4,500 works of art. During Matla's tenure, the permanent collection has doubled in size with a broader emphasis on artist diversity and representation. He has also curated and coordinated several key exhibitions at the art gallery. Now, in addition to his curatorial work, he has also established the Visiting Artist Lecture Project in 2015. Now, this initiative's aim is to bring emerging and mid-career artists from diverse backgrounds to the University of Maryland, thereby allowing them to work collaboratively with the art gallery, students, faculty, and surrounding community on a site-specific project on campus, which I think is very cool. He also brought over something in 2016 called Art Plus Feminism, which is a Wikipedia edit-a-thon. It's held annually in March during Women's History Month and is co-organized with the Michelle Smith Collaboratory for Visual Culture. He is also a research affiliate of Harvard University's Galileo Project. A native of Los Angeles, California, just like me, Matla holds a BFA in printmaking from California State University, Long Beach, and an MA in aesthetics and politics from Cal Arts. Taras Matla, how are you, sir?
I'm well, Daniel. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
It is absolutely my pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on. I've been really looking forward to our conversation. I guess right out the gate, a question I love to ask everyone is just what brought you here? I think all of us have kind of a different path into whether it be UAP or just how I invited you on the show in the first place. What initially got you interested in the topic of UAP? Was it first from Bartel's exhibit that you can talk about in a bit, or did you have an interest beforehand?
I actually had a pre-existing interest, and it's in large part due to kind of my family background. I have a lot of people who worked in the aerospace industry in my family, so I was no stranger to space exploration, to astronomy, aerospace, and the like. I actually have a cousin who's actually on Twitter, UFO philosopher, Adrian Rudnick. He's actually an experiencer. And my other cousin, who I actually have, it's a family affair here.
Yeah, it's a family affair.
Marian Rudnick, who actually is an experiencer. He actually had a major UFO sighting. And it's actually because of that UFO sighting that kind of drew me in. I was kind of agnostic at before that. I had heard experiences from my cousin Adrian about his experiences with abduction and so on and so forth. And I didn't know what to think of it, but I was always open-minded. I knew that we could possibly not be alone, in the universe. But at the same time, it was not necessarily in my wheelhouse, like for many people. I was focused on art school, or I was focused on sports or a wide variety of different things. And it just wasn't something that I was focused on until, later in life when he came up to me. And it sounds, almost surreal because it's almost like a movie or something like that. My cousin had called me up once and he said, I have something really important to show you. And I said, okay, cool. And so we met at one of our favorite pubs in Old Town Pasadena, which the Lucky Baldwin, you may know of it, or you may
I've
have
heard of it. Yeah.
Yes.
That's great.
So if you're familiar with that pub, it's kind of a split level pub, British style. And we kind of went up and, he was kind of mum about what he wanted to show me. And then we went up in the split level where it was a little bit dark and secluded in the corner, and he just kind of pulled out his laptop and he kind of wrote a note. He said, "You don't say anything, but just kind of, take a look at this, what I'm about to show you." And then he flipped it open and boom, there was an amazing image, an image of 4 craft flying, over my hometown of Monrovia. And it was taken by my cousin on New Year's Day in 2017. So this was even before the New York Times article,
Gotcha.
or any of kind of the UFO or UAP mania that we see now. And it was at that moment that I was absolutely just dumbfounded by it. And then, they showed the provenance of it. That image and a whole host of other things are in Marian's book, Intersect, which I recommend if you've never read it. It's a wonderful read. And it's a nice story about somebody who is a trained astronomer who really did not believe in UFOs until he was confronted with the fact that they do exist because they're hovering right in front of him and he took a photo. So that's kind of the background. And then, all the TTSA and the New York Times article was kind of the icing on the cake. At that point, I just got really excited about it because I saw so many people kind of coming up to the plate and trying to offer assistance in whatever way they could, it took a while for me to realize how I could contribute because I was in the arts. And I didn't really know how the arts could play a role, and then kind of fast forward to Chris kind of posting, his pics. And I just thought, aha, this is perfect, and I reached out to Chris. We started a conversation on the back end. And, after I think both of us vetting each other to make sure we're legit and
Sure.
and all our scruples are where they're supposed to be, we decided let's work together. And here we are, 2 years later with the University of Maryland having accessioned his 1,500 plus image archive, having an online exhibition, working on a mini documentary and a whole host of other things.
That's amazing. So I just highlighted here, Aaron, put the link to the gallery below. I highly recommend everyone take a look. It really is beautiful photography, and I really enjoyed looking over it the past. I saw it when it first came out, but I've been re-examining it in preparation for interview, and it really is truly gorgeous. And really, there's definitely some haunting pictures, and it really, I think, brings the atmosphere of the ranch in a way that, reading about it in a book really does not accomplish. It kind of brooches right past that intellectual part of your brain and hits it right here. The composition is really beautiful.
It is. And, the way I structured it was like I structure everything else, that first and foremost, Chris's work is art. It's a work of art. It's in the tradition of documenting the American landscape, dating back to the creation of photography and how it was used in early American expeditions with people like William Henry Jackson and Carlton Watkins, and then later in the 20th century, Ansel Adams. All these people who were drawn to nature and wanted to photograph it and bring it to the masses at a time where cities were connected by railroads, but also by newspaper. That's how people got information. And so photography, like William Henry Jackson, for example, a lot of the things that he shot ended up in magazines and newspapers, and it encouraged more people to kind of connect with nature in a way where they wouldn't have otherwise. And so that was the appeal for me, first and foremost, for connecting with Chris and organizing this exhibition. The other side of it was most definitely the kind of supernatural, paranormal, UFO related side. You won't really see UFOs or anything paranormal per se, but nonetheless, he was stationed at a very, very remote place in northeastern Utah in the Uinta Basin that everyone now knows is Skinwalker Ranch. So that's exciting. But even more exciting was that what brought him there? What brought him there was that he was hired by BASS, Bigelow Aerospace Advanced Space Studies, as an officer there to take care of the property effectively. And he was there toward the end of OSAP. So that's another layer. So there's so many different layers to Chris's photography that when you know, or at least are conscious of all those layers, they make the images stand out that much more and even more appealing. And if I can just have a coda to everything that I've just said, prior to, I would say prior to the publication of Skinwalkers at the Pentagon, the book by Dr. Lukatsky, Dr. Kelleher, and George Knapp, we really didn't know too much about OSAP. We knew, from like leaked information here and FOIAs and stuff like that, but really didn't know the whole picture. Now we do know at least more of the picture, maybe not the full picture, but more of the picture. Oh, there we go. Thank you so much.
Aaron Papadin.
But what's great about Chris's photography, and I think a lot of people lose sight, is the complementary aspect of it. So you can read Skinwalkers at the Pentagon, and then you can look at Chris's work and be like, wow, there's an actual visual to what I'm reading, like in real time. And that's really what we offer. So the exhibition is very much kind of a complement to the new book that's out, although we had no idea that the book was out and we weren't, coordinating with anybody. It's just, it's a very pleasant surprise for me as a curator that the book came out when it did, and when, there's buzz around the book and now buzz around Chris's photography and his experiences.
Absolutely. I mean, gosh, it'd be a great, that would be a great companion piece. To have those two together. That'd be kind of a cool project. Because really, and I know Skinwalker Ranch can be very controversial in this community as a whole, but I think if you really zoom out, no matter what your opinion of it is incredibly noteworthy. And you can't forget the fact that beforehand, yes, Bigelow took quite a big interest in it. And then, yes, the Defense Intelligence Agency funded a very massive study for it. And there's some amazing claims came from that. And whether you believe it or not is true, or any of the other things that go along with it, I think people sometimes skip over that part of it and go straight to the end result and try to pick apart the things that come out of it. But I think it's really important to take a moment and acknowledge and appreciate the gravity of the place, the beauty of the place, and just the sheer insanity, I think, of why they're there. I mean, it's such a, if you just take a moment to really take in, yes, the Defense Intelligence Agency and a contract using contractor of a billionaire are working together to figure out some weird stuff going on there. I think it's just such a fascinating story that I do really believe, as this topic continues to receive increased awareness, and I'm sure inevitably will with further legislation we can talk about later, I can only imagine only more eyes will be on this space and wondering just what's going on, and to see the place in itself.
Yes, I actually have several skinwalkers at the Pentagon's book, because when I have an opportunity to hand it off to somebody,
Yeah.
should have it. And believe me, I'm around Washington D.C. and I'm around individuals who have access to people and places.
Right.
I hand them off, because I think it's important for people to read it, or at least understand that there was a program like this, and the multifacetedness of the program is really fascinating. That Dr. Lukowski, for example, had mentioned that in no unambiguous terms, it was a straight out UFO program, and that's true. But when you read the book, there's so much more that they talk about, that I think as an icebreaker to being able to possibly fund future programs using OSAP as a template is a possibility for sure. But I think that it's important to also not narrow, or not only focus on those things. That we still need to be very open-minded, that whatever we're dealing with can be much more than what just is outlined in a book. For Chris, for example, what was in the book was interesting, but having lived on the property, he has kind of a different take on it, and I think that it's acceptable as well. And he really believes that there's a large Native American component to it that is not understood by all, and he felt like he really tapped into kind of for lack of a better way of putting it, the vibrations or energy of the space, of actually being there and traversing. It's a very, very unique place, and it's important to kind of understand the context in which Chris was residing at Skinwalker Ranch. That he was an officer who was stationed there for 2 weeks at a time, and it started off with 2 officers there, and then over time it went down to just 1 officer and 3 dogs. So Skinwalker Ranch is over 500 acres. So if you can imagine trying to secure, just from
a lot of ground to cover,
secure 500 acres with just 1 individual and 3 dogs. I mean, it is virtually impossible. It is impossible, but he did it. He did the best that he could, and it was just fascinating to hear about his experiences, learn from him, how he went about trying to figure things out. He had his own standard operating procedure that he had to abide by, from Bass. But even aside from that, living there, you kind of get tuned into to certain aspects of the ranch, and so wherever the ranch drew him, he always went there with an open mind and trying to kind of tap into, again, for lack of a better way of saying it, the way he describes it is the vibrations and the energy. It's just, it feels like there's a presence there, like you're being watched. And I know that explaining that sometimes doesn't sit well with people, especially people who are used to quantifying, hard data and things like that. But that's just the reality. And
it's his experience.
It's his experience, and to be quite honest, I believe him. I believe him wholeheartedly, and I think it's important for all of us to support and believe him, because he's not just some mall cop that was hired. Right. He was hired along with many other people for a specific reason, I believe. His background is in the Air Force and Air Force security forces. He worked at Area 51. He worked for the Department of Energy, so he had a very high Q clearance. He worked for a wide variety of other contractors, to support government nuclear sites. So he is trustworthy and reliable in the highest sense of any security professional. And so when you have somebody of that high caliber traversing the ranch and experiencing what he experienced, it can't be taken lightly. I mean, I believe it wholeheartedly, 100%. So
absolutely, and his experience of that sensation is not unique to just Chris either.
Yes.
Michael Huntington has a really interesting question. Has Taras been to the ranch? And I know you mentioned you were working on a documentary about a short documentary about Chris. Do you want to answer that question or expand into that a bit?
Yeah. Well, I have two separate answers for that because they're not at all related. To Michael's question, yes, I have been to the ranch. As a matter of fact, I just came back from the ranch. I was there last weekend. And I was there for the first time. Excuse me, I was out of breath. For the first time. And it was exciting to be able to set foot on the ranch because I have been working with Chris Bartel now for about 2 years on this project. And of course, the pandemic hit. I wasn't able to get out there and get the type of information that I needed to support the project. So I had to, I was flying blindly on instrumentation, not through sight. And so, and I was relying heavily on Chris to help guide me. But finally, the conditions were such that I reached out to Brandon Fugel's people, and they were just unbelievably genuine and gracious and humble. From the get-go, I made them aware of the project and that I was working with Chris, and they just supported everything from the beginning. It took some time, obviously, to get out there, but like I said, they were just consummate professionals and allowing us to spend time on the ranch for me to really kind of dot some I's and cross some T's. In my profession in the museum world, we often rely on curatorial notes for permanent collection objects. So any kind of information, if you're dealing with a living artist, is crucial to gather so that it can make its way into our database, so that later on, if I leave or if somebody else, wants to use the archive or use an image, that they can kind of look and take a look at not just the image and not just, where it was taken, but if there are any kind of corresponding notes from the maker. And so that was my primary role in going to Skinwalker Ranch, was really to fill in the curatorial notes that were lacking and that I wasn't able to kind of fulfill during the pandemic.
Absolutely. Yeah, the context. That's fantastic. And then, so very recent, Michael. We were just talking about it a bit pre-show, so I was leading the witness a little bit. I think that's very cool. Must have been very nice to also, just for you as someone who's been working on it and seeing it in picture form for so long now, to actually see the space. That must have been very neat.
Yeah. And I was, and it's not the first time that I've had to work blindly like that. In graduate school, I studied the work of an obscure artist that most people don't know about, but he's important in as it pertains to printmaking, by the name of Giovanni Battista Piranesi. And he was a major printmaker in the 18th century. And he documented the ruins of Rome. As a matter of fact, he had a kind of a feud with a German archaeologist and printmaker, Joachim Winckelmann. They were fighting over the patronage of the Pope. So
as one does.
Whoever's got the deep pockets, right? Maybe the Pope at that time was the Bigelow, of our time.
Right.
I mentioned this because he always wanted to be an architect, but his architectural ambitions were always way beyond what the technology and what people were interested in funding. And so finally he got a commission for a small church, for actually a renovation, if you can think about that, in the 18th century, a renovation of a small church, which is under the auspices of the Knights of Malta. So this small church is actually within a small city-state within Rome. And the only way you can get in is by writing a formal letter, by presenting your credentials, and you can't see it otherwise. And so it took some time for me to be able to kind of present my credentials, what the purpose of my research was, so that I could actually gain entrance into this small, like I said, city state that is independent in its own right, run by the Knights of Malta, and it's within the city borders of Rome itself. So it's kind of interesting.
Wow, that's fascinating. That's very cool. The Knights of Malta sounds like something straight out of like a Dan Brown novel or something. Michael Huntington might have fought. Did you have to sign any NDAs for going to visit Skinwalker?
Did I have to sign the NDAs? Yes, I did sign an NDA. That should come as no surprise to anybody because this is private property, and there's a lot of intellectual property and experiments going on, and that's all under the auspices of Brandon and his team. And so I signed it. I had no problem with it. And I think it's important, this is all the things that are going on at the ranch now are being privately funded.
Absolutely.
They may have implications later on once they're revealed. I'm not at liberty to say anything. Not that I was, read in on anything, but
right. You received a classified briefing.
Yeah, it's like people have mentioned, that Skinwalker Ranch is a living laboratory, and so if you extrapolate from that, if you assume that the 500 plus acre is property is a laboratory, then you may walk around and see some experiments, or you may see certain things that are, again, it's the intellectual property of the property owner. And I think it's important to maintain that relationship and to let them do what they think is right and they need to do. And if they think it's important enough to release to the public, then they'll do so. End of story.
Yeah, absolutely makes sense. You're investing your resources into that. You should be able to have control about how said results are released. And it's his show. Brandon's actually coming on UCR, I believe, this Friday, I want to say. So
good.
Yeah, so it's a Skinwalker kind of week, I suppose. Kind of happened by accident.
Well, I predicted earlier this year. I said 2021 is going to be the year of Skinwalker Ranch. People can fish that tweet out. Hopefully I'll retweet it today. But boy was I right. I mean, we're all right in that respect. I mean, we're I think just now. Getting below the surface of Skinwalker Ranch and what it means. And I had my project, related to Chris Bartel and a very narrow area of focus, and that's all I'm focusing on is his photography, his experiences between 2010 and 2016. I'm not professing that I'm an expert in any other field or area of Skinwalker Ranch. So I just to put that out there in case people were like, what does he know? Is he doing something else or whatever?
Christopher Plain right here.
It, as an academic, you have that expertise, and I'm really sticking with that expertise. I do have kind of a general knowledge of the history of the region and Skinwalker Ranch and things like that, because you do need to have that in order to be able to then focus in on Chris's work and his time there. But again, that's the area that I'm focused on exclusively. So,
of course, absolutely. So, Christopher Plain of the Debrief. It sounds like this might be a good question for Brandon this Friday. Gotta apply some pressure. We'll see what you can get out of him.
Yeah.
So, a little bit more just about this documentary. Then, is this what is it just because of the initial work you two did together? You thought this is something that should be explored upon and seen by others, or what kind of started that project?
Well, I mean, Chris is a private person, like we all are. We all have our kind of public persona, but we also are very private people. Chris has a lovely wife and 3 beautiful boys, and so he wants to maintain kind of his privacy. And when he does venture out or make comments either on Twitter or when he does begin doing kind of more in-person interviews, he wants to do so on his terms. And so, and that was always very important to him, even for this exhibition. He didn't want to be misrepresented in many ways. He didn't want to be misquoted. He wanted to be able to have an opportunity for him to say what he needed to say, which was, his time at Skinwalker Ranch was very special. It was a very unique time compared to all his other assignments and activities, be it in private contracting or in the military. But he really, really just wanted to have an opportunity to say things on the record in his own terms. And I had offered to him the opportunity to create kind of a small documentary short, which is very common actually in the museum field. If you look at even the Met, MoMA, LACMA, LACMA has a wonderful art and film gala, and attached to that art and film gala, every artist that they recognize has kind of a mini documentary short. And so this is a very common practice in museums. And so I said, what would you think, Chris, about doing a kind of mini documentary? We will give you full autonomy to, say what you want to say about your work in your own terms. You can be the only person in it. And it'll just be you and the photography, and then you'll have the final sign off to make sure that it's correct, it's accurate, and so on and so forth. And he loved that idea. It's a way of giving him closure, I think, in a very complicated era as well. But that's really the genesis of the documentary short. It's not going to be very long. It's going to be probably about 15 minutes or under. So it's going to be something that we're going to hopefully release by the beginning of next year. I just got the latest cut today, and I reviewed it, and it looks really great. There's a few things that we still need to kind of tighten up to make sure that the storytelling is correct and that it's representative of Chris and his time at Skinwalker Ranch. But we're very excited to release it, and it's going to be released free of charge to the public. So it's a formal university product, just like the online exhibition experience. So and that's very important because we're a public university. We're an agency of the state of Maryland. So we use public and private funds to create these things. So you can only imagine that we spend our time really making sure that these are things that taxpayers would approve of, that these are things that people will learn from, that will want to learn more. And I would add the timeliness of it is just dumbfounding to me. The fact that we have all this stuff happening now with the NDAA, with the release of the Skinwalkers and the Pentagon book, and who knows what else is in store in 2022. That it's just perfect timing. So we're just happy to be a part of this story that's unfolding before our eyes.
Absolutely. Well, we'll definitely make a point to share that once it's released. So make sure to let us know, because I know I'm looking forward to seeing that. I'm sure plenty of people are very interested. And you know what? Good on you and the University of Maryland. If only our our government, I think, had the same kind of mindset of sharing information. I think we'd all be in maybe perhaps a little bit of a different place.
Well, they do share information. You know what I mean? Like, I think we always like to say, the government. There I think are very, very good people within our government, and the vast majority of people within the federal government. Doesn't matter what department are good, but when it comes to this specific topic, there's a history of bad elements doing bad things to the information, and in some cases to the people trying to bring this information forward. And I think that's really what our focus is. And I'm so happy that something like the NDAA and the Gillibrand Rubio Amendment has really come to the surface, because it's in its own way legislatively trying to address 70 years of malfeasance by the bad elements.
Absolutely. I think that you nailed it on the head. I think when people ask, why is Congress doing this? I think, was it Bob Pliskin, because that's an alias, but Bob Pliskin said it really well. It's just Congress doing their job. I think they're probably getting briefed, and I think answers aren't clear. And so they're saying, well, we better find out more. And that's really, I think it's really as simple as that. I think this is a congressional effort to find out more, and we'll see what comes from that, but it's a big movement.
I think, and building off of what you said, I think it's a lot of things happening. It just happens to be, where we are now with technology allows people to amplify messages in a way that just was not possible, And when you look back to, Project Blue Book and how things were handled during that time and what Edward Ruppelt was trying to do in publishing his book, and later Jack Valet and Bud Hopkins and Carla Turner and all these people who are considered kind of the old school of ufology. We have to stay humble and we have to acknowledge them for their work because they were doing the best that they could during that time. There was no internet, there was no social media. I mean, you had to literally spend money, and a lot of money, to do research, to travel to places, to get trace samples of something if there was an alleged landing, to interview people, to go cross country to different cities, collect calls. You know what I mean?
There was no control find option on PDFs back then, right?
We're so spoiled in terms of how we get information and our expectation for getting more information. I think we're doing fine, and I feel fortunate enough that I have had about 20 or so years living in the 20th, where I moved into the 21st century and have an actual recollection of what life was like in the 20th century, pre-internet, and understanding that life was different, and people did the best they could. But despite those circumstances, they did good. They organized. There was activism at that time at an amazing level, given the circumstances. So, we need to stay humble. We need to thank the people who helped pave the way. But now, in the modern era, there is no question in my mind that we need to thank, individuals like Tom DeLonge for really getting, being the spark, and everything. And then Elizondo and Mellon for really using the bureaucracy and social media in a way to help amplify the vision and voices of so many people within ufology. I mean, that just is mind-numbing to think about, in terms of the gargantuan work that they're doing. And it's helping people like me, it's helping people in academia to be able to now go to department heads, to deans, to provosts, to university presidents, and saying, this is a real thing. We should be getting more money to fund projects like this for people who have interesting ideas about how to creatively pursue this topic, because I don't think it's going away. I think it will be here, but how it all plays out is incumbent on us to think more strategically and creatively. And I'm just happy that I'm able to leverage the museum field to be able to bring this type of information to the forefront and help educate people on this topic through art.
Absolutely. And I can speak for myself and say that I am very grateful that you are doing that, because I think one of the main reasons I too went public with myself when I first got into this topic, because I wasn't. My Twitter account was Psycop1. That's not my name. It was originally just an anonymous account for me to discuss and talk about it, because my poor girlfriend, I just needed to leave her alone and talk about it with people online, because I was just like, I need to discuss this with someone because I'm going to drive her crazy. But I think it's important to say there is something here, and it's worth investigating, and it's worth looking at, and we shouldn't be the stigma is not helpful, and it doesn't lead us to find answers. And in my opinion, it needs to just get out of here, because no one should be mocked for, or things shouldn't be dismissed just because they may be odd. And I think we certainly at this point now have reached quite past a point of no return in terms of there is enough to base on. So I guess the question I had to I really wanted to ask you, anyways, you brought it up, was as someone now who is in these institutions, who always get to talk to provosts and deans and really on a regular see people and speak to people in the academic world. I'm seeing a shift ever since that really OD&I report came out with the AIAA and of course Galileo Project, which we can get to in a second. But are you also finding that then it is easier to speak about this topic in a serious manner without giggles and eye rolls to others in academia? Are you able to breach that topic? Are people taking it seriously? Do you see this movement in that area?
I do. And what a difference just 4 years make. I mean, when I think back to where things were 4 years ago, when things were just kind of starting, and my wanting to kind of do my part as best as I could, and trying to pitch some of these ideas to people here at the university, it was a hard sell, and I can't even begin to emphasize how difficult it was. It wasn't impossible, obviously, because I was able to, do a lot of stuff that I ended up doing. However, I had to put a lot of my personal reputation and credibility on the line, and because if some of these things didn't work out, it would not fare well in terms of me being able to have access to other projects or funding in the future. So, and I think that that's good, because it helps me, from an epistemological perspective. How do I know what I know? I need to cross-check all the information, make sure that everything is really tied to all the information is fully cited and sourced, and then present it to the higher up so that they can really read it through in a serious way. That as soon as they read it, they're going to see something that deals with UFO, but they're going to check the sources, they're going to check the footnotes and the endnotes, and they're going to say, wow, this is really good, legitimate scholarship. And I'll say, thank you very much. Can I have the support now, financial support?
Right.
And they will, So I feel like things have changed a lot, And
that's good to hear.
It was a hard sell early on in late 2017, early 2018. However, as things kind of started to move forward, and again, you have to go back to especially the work of Elizondo and Mel, and using the existing bureaucracies to help elevate this topic in a serious manner. That when they appeared on TV, or when there was a big article that came out, that I could then save these articles and show them to higher ups, at which point they would be like, okay, the New York Times is covering this, like Wall Street Journal, okay, CNN, you know what I mean? Like,
absolutely.
And before you know it, you have like a thick, stack of fully sourced, legitimate mainstream media coverage of this topic. And so the stigma slowly, evaporates, and I think it's still there, but it's nowhere near what it was even 4 years ago. And I'm just absolutely astonished by that, and pleasantly surprised as well.
Absolutely. I can tell a difference as well. And speaking of stigma, G West, and I think Play maybe have been saying, I'm catching bits and pieces, really wants your opinion. Thank you, G West, for the $2 donation. It's so appreciated. Does Taras think it's aliens? Do you have an opinion on what the answer may be?
I do have an opinion. And I will give my opinion, but I will preface it by saying that even though I have an opinion, I'm also open to other viewpoints. My opinion is my opinion is formed based on my life experiences, the research that I've done, the people that I've spoken to, and just other things that I've read and seen. That said, I believe that it is something non-human, that it is most likely extraterrestrial or non-terrestrial, however you want to phrase it. I think that there is strength in the ETH, the extraterrestrial hypothesis, just given what we know about the universe and how many billions and billions of solar systems, and the potential for so many exoplanets, many of which have the conditions to sustain Earth-like life, but also potentially, we're learning more about what life really is, and what it means to be alive and conscious, that there could be planets where we may not view as humans, to be habitable, but may have an abundance of life, but the life force or the life organisms or whatever is there is just completely different and unique. You can't rule it out just because the vastness of the universe. But that said, I'm very open-minded and sympathetic and admire a lot of things like the interdimensional theories that people like Jacques Vallée have put forward. For example, Jacques Vallée has been doing this for a very, very, very long time, and so even though I may not agree with him on certain areas of whether or not it's interdimensional or not, it doesn't matter. I admire his rigor, his scholarship, and I think he's a wonderful academic. I just respectfully disagree on certain areas in terms of what the origin of this phenomenon that we're witnessing may be. The other aspect is it may be interdimensional, and it also may be extraterrestrial. It could be a whole host of things.
It doesn't have to be one thing.
The thing is that we're all, in the end of the day, we're all speculating because we have a lot of data, but all the data that we have is very difficult to piece together into a cohesive body that is decipherable by us or by technology or science and so on and so forth. And so I know that a lot of people just want the answer, and I think that that's the wrong approach. I too want the answer right now. If I could know what it all is tomorrow, I would stay up late today, to be able to find out what it is tomorrow. But I think that the best approach is you always have to work and do the best that you can in your lifetime, knowing that even if you don't get to the answer, you're setting a foundation for other people to hopefully pick up where you left off. And that is the hallmark of a true movement. And I hope that this is something that ufology and people on UFO Twitter really take to heart, that we're all, I think, truth seekers in some capacity or another, but at the same time we need to recognize that we may not see these things in our lifetime, but because we won't see them doesn't mean that we still can't contribute and can't keep the momentum and keep the ball going. That's what I plan on doing in my endeavors, and I know a lot of my other colleagues and people within my academic circles will continue to do. I know that's what Elizondo and Mellon will keep on doing. And so as long as we all do that collectively, we'll get to the answer a lot quicker than we would otherwise. So I just think let's all, calm down a little bit, but press on.
Well said.
That's my soapbox for the evening.
I love it. Clip that, kids. Yeah, I think that's incredibly well said, and that's how scientific advancement really happens, right? I mean, first of all, Robert McCowan, I hope I'm saying your name right. Thank you so much for the $4.99 super sticker. Your support is really greatly appreciated. Thank you, sir. Right, I've always said to people, I really want UFOs to become boring. I want, in the sense that I want it to become another thing in the world of academia that is just picked apart, and there's papers and research and PhD program. There's PhD students who spend, their entire doctorate trying to publish a paper that, maybe just advances they understand just a little bit at a time. That's really how it's done. And I think that mindset is really important, because if these things really are as advanced as so many more and more of our own leaders seem to say it is, we may not be able to figure it out or have any immediate answers or really unsatisfying answers. But the point is to start asking those questions and to really start engaging with the topic, which kind of leads me to how you ended up getting associated with the Galileo Project, which I think is so neat. How did that go about happening?
Yeah, well, I really, like I said earlier, like I am always trying to find ways where I can get involved and be useful. And the nice thing about the arts is that it's a very malleable platform, right?
Yeah.
And there are many ways you can interpret art, present art, and so on and so forth. And Galileo Project is by no means an artistic endeavor per se. However, it has a very multidisciplinary approach, which I didn't think was the case early on, which was kind of a criticism of mine. But over time, I slowly started to see the types of different types of individuals with different types of background begin to get research affiliateships. And so I actually I wrote a nice letter to Dr. Loeb, kind of introducing myself and a few projects that I had worked on in the past that were related to astronomy and UFOs. And if he thought that such expertise or future projects that I was working on may be useful to the pursuits of Galileo Project, I'd be happy to volunteer. And he got right back to me. He wrote me a very nice email welcoming me in and giving me kind of a pick of different, committees and things like that, and introducing me to a whole host of other, people. And it's great. There's, you have people who are hardcore scientists there, many people who are historians. You have, even skeptics, you have Michael Shermer in there. And you have, Seth Shostak, who's not necessarily a skeptic, but he has his views on
he's definitely been vocal about it.
Definitely. I think he just wants to see more proof, specific types of proof, which is fine. But the great thing about the Galileo Project and what Avi has built in terms of the professionalism of the group is there's so many people representative of so many different disciplines that all these people, whether you already believe that UAPs are ET, or you're completely skeptical, or you're agnostic, and that's why you want to build these next generation telescopes to really get the data to find out, and so on and so forth. You have all these competing interests that at the end of the day will be able to say their piece about the data, say whether or not they think it's compelling or not. And if it is compelling, the consensus that comes just from that group alone will be highly credible, and I think that many people will realize that if they haven't already. I mean, just the Gillibrand Rubio Amendment and the NDAA, for example, had language, to having advisors from the Galileo Project, to assist with this new office and how it's kind of conducting its business and so on and so forth. So already the reputation of the Galileo Project is preceding itself, and I think that's good. That's a testament to Avi's leadership, and I'm just excited to be a part of it and be a part of all the different committees and subcommittees, and offer my 2 cents for what it's worth. But everyone is very professional and respectful. There are no dumb questions. Everybody takes the time to think through everything that people say. Some of our meetings are massive. They're like 50 or 60 people every Friday. But it's great to see all these.
That's awesome.
Faces. And now, Melon and Elizondo are on board, so it's fun to see them and the decades of expertise that they bring and others. So it's just a terrific organization, and I think that the Galileo Project is really now the tip of the spear as far as really being able to move the needle on gathering important data in real time to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that there indeed is such a thing as a UAP or a UFO, that it's a solid object, that it's a craft, that it's a vehicle, that it is moving in ways that we cannot comprehend or that our modern day physics can't explain for. Now we will still have to account for the fact of whether or not what we're observing is adversarial, is it experimental U.S. tech, because in the historical videos that we see, they've kind of discounted those scenarios, but we're very limited in terms of how we can analyze that material, because a lot of it is gleaned from classified platforms of which we don't have access to. And that's what the Galileo Project is really trying to do, is unfortunately, we can't go back in time and get all the data, and distill it and make sense of it. I mean, we can, and we'll get some results, but that information won't necessarily sway the broader scientific or academic community who is conditioned to view information a certain way. And
Absolutely.
so the only other way we can do this is by, unfortunately, kind of starting from scratch. But I think Avi and the team have a very good plan about building a good FLIR capable telescope that will be able to survey certain areas that we believe, are UFO hotspots. And if there's something that is identified that we can study and glean data from, it'll be great, because that's information we won't have to fight the government for, because it won't be classified data.
It'll be open source.
It would be open source, and a wide variety of people can really just sink their teeth into it, write papers and stuff. And I think that is just right and proper. And hats off to the people at Galileo Project for having the foresight to do that.
Absolutely. And just the massive interest. I mean, you go on their website and you look at all the science team and all of the research affiliates. It's incredible. It is truly a really, like you said, multidisciplinary and really impressive individuals that are all fine with putting their name on this list. I think this alone, the Galileo Project, like you said, it's kind of it's a proof of concept, I think, for a lot of academics too, saying, hey, look how much interest there is. And like, no one is mocking or pulling, grants because their name is attached to it. This is a genuine scientific, really, I mean, that's scientific. I mean, it's one of the greatest questions of our time, right? Of humanity. And I'm just so happy to see that there has been such an overwhelming positive response within the entire academic community in regards to that. Because you're really, the list of people involved is really, truly, truly inspiring. It's really,
it's terrific. And so many of those people I didn't know. And so I spent, the first couple of weeks just learning everybody, everyone's name, their backgrounds, and kind of perusing all the different things that they've published. And it really is spectacular, and it's great because we have kind of a Slack channel. And so, there's a lot of stuff that kind of moves to keep everybody organized on their tasks and stuff. But
sure.
What I really appreciate is that despite the formal credentials of all these academics and all these really, really terrific, brilliant minds, everybody still retains a wonderful sense of humor, and there's something humble about everybody, and everybody bounces off, different ideas, and there's just kind of a lightheartedness to the situation. And so that's just kind of an added bonus. It's nice to be working with colleagues who you admire professionally, but also get along with just, in a regular kind of virtual office environment.
Absolutely. I mean, that's conducive to things getting done. And also, it's important to take things seriously, but not yourself seriously, right? I think that's something that we all also say on this channel all the time, is that we take this topic seriously, but, you got to live through life with a sense of humor. You can get caught up in serious stuff all the time. Robert McAllen, under $5 donation. Thank you, sir. We're running out of time here. So this might be one of our last questions today, but is anyone, I'm assuming this might be in reference to the Galileo Project, is anyone looking into folks with consciousness connection, Professor Lanza biocentrism type research? I'll let you answer this, but I'm pretty sure Galileo is right now sticking strictly to observational astronomy, but I'll let you put in 2 cents.
That's correct. As of right now, there are 2 components to the Galileo Project, and both of them stem from the ODNI report in June, and then the observation of Oumuamua in 2017. So the first part related to the ODNI report on UAPs is that Galileo Project intends to build a telescope to be able to observe UAPs in specific hotspots. And so it's just a telescope. There are plans to install it on top of the astrophysics building at Harvard University as kind of the first operational one, the first kind of prototype operational one, with the hopes of deploying them nationwide all over. But you always need kind of an operational one first before you can ask other people to put them on their property or so on and so forth. And the other aspect is ISOs, or interstellar objects. And so there's a ISO component where they're trying to plan for when the next interstellar object is coming into the solar system as opposed to leaving, and whether or not we can raise the funds to design, build, and send a payload into space that can actually be deployed to photograph up close and personal an ISO while it's either moving in or out, so that we can get better quality imagery than what we ended up getting with Oumuamua, which is, we got the general kind of shape, but really what it's made of and so on and so forth is it's really an artistic rendering that what we've seen in popular culture and media in terms of the images of Oumuamua. So the hope is to be able to deploy some type of payload that will be able to take better photos of that at the right moment when the ISO enters or exits our solar system. So those are the two projects that Galileo Project is currently working on. Those two are very ambitious in and of themselves, and they take a lot of human power, a lot of capital, a lot of donations, and we're all kind of doing our part to work our respective channels to make that happen. So,
yeah, well, gosh, I hope the project gets more and more funding, or if not from private people, perhaps maybe eventually the NSF itself will be like, hey guys, we'll throw you some money. It seems very much like a topic worthy of conversation.
Well, I suspect, that if all things go well with respect to the deployment of the first telescope at Harvard University, I think that more people will be interested in the development of not just that specific platform, but also the ISO, version of it in space. So, yeah,
absolutely. Or the Oumuamua, I know we caught it as it was leaving, so it'd
exactly
be nice to get ahead of it this time.
Yeah.
Gosh, oof, fascinating stuff. We're out of time, Taras. Our hour is up. Thank you so much for coming on today. I really enjoyed our conversation. We'll have to come back sometime. We have plenty more to talk about. Is there anything else you want to leave us with, anything you're working on, or any words you want to end on?
No, not really. Daniel, I just wanted to thank you for extending the invitation to allow me to speak. It's been a real pleasure, and I'm really happy that people have responded positively to Chris's work, to his experiences. There's a lot more on the horizon. I know we didn't get to talk too much about our meetings with Senator Lee.
Yeah, we'll have to get to next time.
But that's okay. That's for another time. And,
absolutely.
And what I can say is Chris has been here in Washington, D.C. twice, and there are more trips planned and there are more meetings planned. So stay tuned to the documentary and to news on more meetings.
Fantastic.
I'll leave that cliffhanger for you.
I love it. More to come until next season.
Yes.
Fantastic. Well, Taras, thank you so much. We have your link below, but where can people find you online if they want to see more of your stuff?
If you want to see things that I'm producing, you can go to www.artgallery.umd.edu. There, Chris's exhibition is just a click away, as well as other exhibitions that are not UFO related or alien related or anything else. Like I said, we're a museum that showcases emerging artistic talent. Chris is just one of many, although we're focusing on him right now. But please check back occasionally, because we have different things up at different times.
Fantastic. Excellent. Well, on that note, I think we'll finish it up. Taras, thank you so much for coming in. I really appreciate your time. We had a great talk.
You're welcome. Thank you, Daniel. Take care.
Thank you. Take care. All right, guys, that's it for another episode of Known Quantities. What a great conversation. What a nice guy and a thoughtful guy. Once again, thank you, DOS Tapes, for just a lovely outro and intro. Guys, and this is a podcast. Make sure to like, follow, rate, review. Patreon link of mine is in the link below, patreon.com/Daniel Miller. We are supported by viewers like you. Make sure to like and subscribe, ring that bell, and moderators, once again, thank you so much for It's keeping a hold of this rowdy crowd in chat. All right, folks. Thank you so much. Signing off.
I'm going to tell y'all right now, all of these wonderful people would not be here without Patreon supporters like you. If you enjoy credible news, reviews, and commentary on UFOs and UAPs 5 days a week, you want to support this show. What's your name? Marty. Marty, look how easy this is, Marty. Pick up your phone. Boom! You're a Patreon member. I mean, look, it's so easy. You just click the link, which is right here. Just for $1 a month, you can support this show. Just fill out the information and pledge what's comfortable for you. It could be $1, $5, $10, or who knows. Just support.